Are we going? Okay. Hey, y'all. Sorry. How you doing? Welcome to HockeyBuzzcast. Welcome to Monday. And now on to the pre-show.
So let's talk about George Springer. He's a member of the Houston Astros. And this spring, he's not doing so well. So the other day, now granted, this is spring training. After striking out a couple of consecutive times, he went into the dugout and he had a tirade and started smashing his bat. Now, if this wasn't on a team of cheaters, nobody would care. Everybody would just be like, so what? He's got a temper.
Was he smashing it out of a garbage can?
But what this plays into is it shows the pressure now that these guys are under, that they've basically put on themselves. And Major League Baseball could have alleviated it by vacating the title and just saying, you know what? Nobody's a champion that year because they cheated. They didn't do that. So now fans booing them and this happening, this will be one of the worst years you will see for any baseball club ever. I know they're a good team. They're not going to be a playoff team, though, because they're going to have a lot of turmoil. They have talent, so they'll win games, but they're
Is there no chance they rally on this thing?
There is a chance, but I don't see it yet. I don't see how they're doing it.
Well, let's just say this. Jose Altuve was on a path of a Hall of Fame career.
Correct.
You probably have to have maybe 4 or 5 more years like he's had the last few, but that was within the realm of possibility. He's not old. He's a pretty good hitter. But if he follows up last year or the last couple years and hits 250, he's a friggin' fraud. And it'll ruin any chance of him. If he hits 320 without any kind of help, then I think the criticism will be less. There'll still be a stain on his career. But if he goes out and hits 30, 40, 50 points below his average, people will hold him in utter contempt.
One more guy. So Barry Bonds recently came out with a quote and said, a death sentence, that's what they've given me. According to him, that's what Major League Baseball gave him when he retired in 2007. Again, this guy only admitted to putting the clear on his knee and somehow looked like the Michelin Man. And he looked, I want to say, 200 pounds, Mike? If you look at Barry Bonds today, he's about 170, 75 pounds.
Yeah, Barry, you got it wrong. The death sentence was put on by you taking all those roids. And I don't wish this upon him, but when he dies in 3 years, because probably of some sort of congenital heart failure or something that's tied to steroids, then who's going to be to blame? Him.
Well, he's definitely to blame for what he did to himself, and he should not be blaming Major League Baseball. Again, this goes back to players want to make a lot of money and they want to be the best, right? So this guy, he was already going to be, one of the 20 best of his era, but instead he went overboard because his godfather, Willie Mays, is one of the greatest players ever, and he wanted to be better than him, and he wanted to be better than McGuire, who he knew was also taking part in this stuff.
That was the other thing, too, right? Like, you had a combination of there.
So he did that, and he had to have known there's a chance when you do that you're never going to get to the Hall of Fame. And so now, 9 years later, or more than 9, 13 years later, bad math there, he has realized he's never getting to the Hall of Fame. And you know what? I don't feel bad for him. Nobody should feel bad for him.
Him and Clemens should never make it. A-Rod should never make it.
I mean, he hit 73 home runs. It's a joke.
Yeah,
David Ortiz should never make it.
I mean, we don't, you never know. I mean, how long this, we'll never know everybody who broke a rule using steroids.
No, but I can tell you what, Sportsology, my website, actually chronicled this.
Oh, yeah.
Indirectly. We used to get, very beginning, we started in 2000, we used to get credentialed by Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. I had a guy out there, Waleek Edwards, who was covering the Giants. He lived out in that area. He was calling Barry Bonds fat for a while because he had put on all this weight. And then over the course of a season, that started to distribute, and he started to do better, and things started to pick up, and then he started to get these astronomical numbers. Right. We didn't write anything about steroids or the clear or anything like that in the article, but he noticed the change in his body.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
we're not idiots. His head was bigger.
It was hard to not notice that. I mean, honestly.
Well, what's the funny thing is, would any of this stuff have come out if in 1998 Mark McGuire hadn't had a thing of androstenedione on his lot?
Probably not. That was the start of it.
Probably not. And that's sad because, it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind. It's like, okay, we really don't care. We care about the results.
Well, that was how baseball handled it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they stole sign. I mean, we know everything. We know the reason they got they got slapped with what they got slapped with. But I mean, as an outsider, okay, like this person who doesn't really watch baseball that much, and and follows what happens. I understand what happened, but what if I'm to make the counter argument, just to devil's advocate's sake, to say that every team, there's a rule in pro sports to cheat until you can't cheat. Like there is a definite rule that things happen all the time where people are like, it goes like cheating on face-offs to like this to that, like, we know it's not the first time that, that this has happened. I'm sure other teams have done this kind of thing. I'm sure that
not to this degree,
maybe not to this coordinated degree for sure, but maybe they just hadn't thought about doing it to this coordinated degree, or do we think that is my argument ridiculous? I mean, I just
no, it's not ridiculous. But what I'm interested in is, Russ, we still haven't heard about the Red Sox yet.
I know the Red Sox thing is lingering now, and Major League Baseball has seemed to slow down the process of that for sure, because we were supposed to hear about it weeks ago. Yeah. Here's what I would say. Mm-hmm. What I would say is, right now, there is a lingering stink if you're on that team that is on these players.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be there for a while, if not for the rest of their careers, unless they prove otherwise. Teams may cheat, but that's why we have referees or everything. If we didn't have any cheating in sports, there would never wouldn't be a need for a referee or an umpire or anything.
I mean, there's gamesmanship and then there's cheating. I mean, I've heard the story many a time about how Scotty Bowman, when he was in Montreal, would have the opposing locker room painted with fresh paint right before the teams would go in, because then they'd be sucking up all the fumes.
Yeah.
So that's gamesmanship. It's dirty bull crap, but it's gamesmanship.
Right. There's stuff like that goes on, but this was for an entire season, a coordinated effort. It's on video. The players knew it. And now the players who were in on it, who are still playing, are feeling the effects. And again, people could always say, nobody cares about baseball anymore. They care.
No, they care. There's no question people care about baseball. That's not, I mean, I joke about it all the time, but I mean, I know people care about baseball and people care about cheating and stuff like that. I wanted to bring this picture up. I'm going to bring it up in a second. Actually, I'm going to stop this for a second and go back to us.
Okay.
All right, let's start the show though. Here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, March 9th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast. HockeyBuzz.com. I got the date right. Almost not the show.
Yeah.
This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at the afternoons and this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I just wanted to start with this because this was kind of cool. This is the Flyers photo today. And this is Oscar Lindblom being part of it here, which is very cool, obviously. I
was touched to see it. Adam Kimmelman had it on his Twitter feed, and it was nice to see. I reposted. I've still been wearing the wristband that you helped fund, and then other people helped fund that we did a few rounds of, and I haven't taken it off, and now it's getting like weather beaten. So at some point I may refresh it, but I still haven't forgotten, and I really do want this guy to beat it, and we all do. And so it's a nice thing for the Flyers to do because he's still a member of that team. He could not be on that team for 2 or 3 years now and maybe make a comeback at some point, and he'll still be a member of that team. That's how they're going to treat him.
Here it is, guys. Sorry I didn't get it before, but here it is. You can. I mean, he's definitely going to be a member of that team. He's just a great guy, as all hockey players are. But he was particularly, and was really, coming into his own this year as a hockey player for sure.
Well, not all hockey players. We're not sure about Brad Marchand, but anyhow, go ahead.
Yeah, not all hockey players, as most are. I'll say
most are.
There you have it. But yeah, I think that
this was a nice moment.
This is a really cool moment, and the Flyers, are good at this kind of thing. The Flyers do this kind of thing really well. They're very classy when it comes to stuff like this. They always have.
I don't know why they don't put Robert Hogg next to him. I know they're trying to do height order, but that's his best friend. Like, why not put your best friend?
Yeah, they should have done that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Not to be picky, but.
No, of course. But still, that does make sense. I agree with you on that one. But let's get into it. Let's get into what happened this weekend, because where we are with the playoffs is completely,
Oh, the standings are ridiculous.
It's upside down, man. We
It's
knew
really
it was
gotten
going.
crazy. And it's amazing to me. Like I wrote an article, and I got to refresh it. I wasn't going to refresh this, but the spoiler thing that's happening is just not stopping. I mean,
It's crazy.
It's continuing, and and it's just, and I'm, my wife's like coming in. She's like, "Why we're doing so terrible in these projections on these standings?" And I'm like, "We should be changing something." Like, no, we can't.
No, I don't think there's anything you could do.
Nothing. I mean, I went down and you can't predict that the Red Wings are going to beat the Lightning yesterday. I mean, and that's the extreme example. But even that, like all the Kings games, the Kings have just been phenomenal.
The Kings have been killers for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they've been killers. The Devils and the Senators are these teams are just like, and it's a lot of things. Obviously, in hockey, there's
the pressure.
Playing without pressure can be a wonderful thing, and that's what you're seeing. And playing for careers is desperation is a huge motivator in hockey. I always say the more desperate team will tend to win in hockey. It's just the way it goes. But what we don't realize is how desperate like some of these teams are, that are playing the spoiler. There's just guys on there that are not just desperate but good. And I think that also when you look at this, you also have to admit that the influx of young players making an impact into the league is happening faster than we even realize.
Sure. Yeah.
And the talent of young kids is just so remarkable.
I can't say I don't realize it because I follow it closely,
Yeah.
but not everybody follows it that closely. So like Morgan Geekie getting a couple points, I wasn't like shocked, but I know some people would be shocked because they don't even know who he is until all of a sudden he emerges. Like I get that. And you're right about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. Like this just continues and continues. And teams are just like, I mean, the Rangers and Wild, on Saturday night, devastating losses. I mean, to lose the Devils for the Rangers.
Let's talk about that Rangers loss.
Yeah, go. Let's talk about it.
Because
these are two teams that have battled very, very hard to get back into this race, and then face up against two teams that have nothing to gain by winning. In fact, everything to gain by losing. If you want to get closer, and yet they lose those games. Those are devastating losses. I mean,
but this was mishandled. Go ahead, Russ.
It was mishandled. So we talked about it on Off the Post early that day. Before the game, actually, it was before the game, right? We did. We were saying our collective thought process was Shesterkin's still a rookie. He may be a seasoned goalie, a veteran goalie somewhere else, but he's still a rookie in this league.
Yeah.
He's got a rib injury, a rib cartilage injury. I had mentioned that Robin Leonard had just shown the day before, like the puck imprint on his chest, because even the equipment can't stop everything from these guys' 100-mile-an-hour shots. And they threw him in there. And I'm not telling you he wasn't ready, but I'm telling you there was no reason to put him in there when you had Henrik Lundqvist on the bench, who complained he hadn't played enough. So when he played the first time in a month, everybody complains and he loses. But then they could have used him for that game. He played the Devils many times.
Yeah.
He could have easily won that game. Instead, they go with Shesterkin. He's rusty. They bring in Lundqvist, and he doesn't give a goal. He doesn't give up a goal. Yeah. And this is clear mismanagement because David Quinn was just going with riding the hot hand and not really looking at the rest. Like, even if Shesterkin says, I'm skating, I'm good to go, you know what? Let him wait another 2 games. Seriously.
I guess the whole argument is like, okay, I mean, if you're looking at it like they are going – they should beat the Devils regardless, and this gives him a chance to get his feet wet again. But that was the wrong way to look at it because
that is the wrong way.
The way the Devils have been playing, that just made no sense to me. If you have to look at it, like if we can't beat the Devils with Lundqvist, then we're not a playoff team.
Right? We have Henrik Lundqvist. I don't care if he's still not Henrik Lundqvist of 3 years ago, but he's still a good goalie.
Right. So I don't think it was this. I don't think it was that. I think it was honestly the first thing. I think they were just they were not giving the Devils credit. They figured they would bring him into an easy game and he would be able to get his.
That could cost them the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's astonishing. I mean, we have learned that truly, I was jokingly a while back. I tweeted out on Twitter that wasn't. You always hear players say that everybody can beat anybody on any given night, right? And that's true in hockey, no question about it. But I was when the Red Wings reached minus 120 in goal differential, I felt like sending out there. I'm like, is it honestly true anymore that the Red Wings can beat like anybody, and you can lose to the Red Wings on any given night? And last night we saw it as true. But I mean, Tampa comes in what is a pretty big game for them because I mean they are now at loss. After beating Boston, that's the crazy thing. Like after beating Boston in a majorly important game. They come back and they lose they lose to
Detroit. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, as it was pointed out with your column earlier in the week about, you're 9 points behind somebody, it's over with.
Yeah.
It really is. So it's like, I mean, not to say you lay down to the Bruins, but no, you try to win the game, but it's not like they're in a race right now. The Bruins have first place in the Atlantic. They probably have the President's Trophy. They have home ice advantage throughout the Eastern Conference. We saw what that means with Tampa Bay last year because all that meant crap because they lost to Columbus. So, what Tampa Bay should be focused on is getting their own house in order. They have some injuries. Hedman got hurt. Stamkos is still hurt. He'll probably be out through the first round of the playoffs. They have their own worries. So now where I want to go here.
Yeah,
you need more Tang, Mike.
No, you're drinking the Tang.
I'm not drinking Tang. This is like Mountain Dew orange drink.
Oh, okay. That's
good.
That's right. Where I want to go is the Eastern Conference standings where, lo and behold, the New York Islanders are out of a playoff spot.
I know.
So let's talk about that too, because two things that are really rubbing the fan base the wrong way with the Islanders. The first one is, like we talked about, they have over $3 million in cap space. That's ridiculous for a New York team. The second one is when Lewis asked about the scoring problems, he specifically stated, the differential is all I worry about. Well, the differential is at 0.
It's at 0, yeah.
So now what?
Well, it is pretty remarkable that, I mean, I can't remember a time when you had a team that, like the Panthers, who are fifth, 5 out of the playoffs with a positive goal differential. I mean,
right.
Really, what you have is these like brutal.
There's a lot anomalies everywhere.
These brutal goal differentials, and then in the opposite conference, you have teams like that are in the wild card that are like Nashville's a -4. I mean, they're almost and they're basically they're tied for a wild card spot right now. So it's ridiculous. I mean,
where the argument about different goal differential sort of loses its meaning, sort of like there's flaws in plus minus, is the fact that a team like Florida, who is probably I think they're in the top 5. I know for a fact Toronto is second in the NHL in goals. Their goal differential is +10. That is abysmal because that means you're in the bottom 5 of goals against. And I think it's been proven you can't be a wide open offensive team. Florida is one example. Toronto is another, and be that all year and hope to have success. It doesn't work. And that's why these teams are struggling to make the playoffs.
It does. I mean, the Maple Leafs have given up 226 goals. The Panthers have given up 227 goals. And you're looking at like those are really high. I mean, that's way higher than a lot of teams that are in the 190s.
And Dale Talon spent $10 million a year to bring in Sergei Bobrovsky to solve that problem. And what he found out is it's a bigger problem than just their goaltending. The same thing with Toronto. Freddie Anderson, he stood on his head on Thursday in Los Angeles. He can't score a goal. They tried. I told Russ this on the off the post on Saturday.
Yeah.
How do you know a team like Toronto? And a team like Florida, when they decide they want to play a shutdown defensive game, they can do it, but it comes at the cost of their offense. And on the California West Coast trip, they played as much of a shutdown game as they possibly can, but they had one regulation goal in both of those games.
Yeah.
So it comes at the cost of their offense. So it's basically they can play wide open or they can play shutdown. They're not particularly good at shutdown, but they can do it. But it comes at the cost of their offense. And when they play wide open, they can't play defense. So the teams that win it are like St. Louis, who score goals, who score on the power play, who get great goaltending, and who can play defense. And neither one of those teams can do any of those things.
Right.
Like Derek Brassard's got a point in 5 games. Like, I get he's got 10 goals. That's great. But
no, I mean, the Islanders are
they need better guys than that. They need – and you know what? And they have higher skill guys in the minors. I'm sorry, but – at this point, Josh Kosang is a higher skill guy than Derek Brassard, and he'll never get a chance. I just watched Bellows play yesterday against the Phantoms. He looks really good, but he can't get a roster spot because Matt Martin's stealing it from him. I don't know who, I mean, it's like –
or Ross Johnston.
Right. I mean, tell me where you can't make these moves. But again, this is coming at the stubbornness of the coach.
Yeah.
Anthony Beauvillier doesn't have a point in 5 games. Like, they need consistent scoring. They knew this would be a problem. We said Pajot was a nice step in that direction, and they stopped right there. And they shouldn't
haven't really given Pajot like the correct role necessarily so far.
Well, that's fair too. But
if you want to get what Pajot was giving like Ottawa, you got to give him the minutes Ottawa was giving him, and that's the reality. And
right.
I mean, granted, that's going to take time away from other players on the Islanders, but I mean, the interesting thing about goal differential, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I think this makes a lot of sense. And because I kind of came to this like, huzzah moment when I was talking to them about goal differential, and I thought to myself, goal differential tends to be a real problem for teams who fall behind early in games. And the reality is,
right,
if you fall behind by 1 or 2 goals early in a game, like this is why the Flyers goal differential has been horrible the last couple of years. If you're playing catch up hockey to try to catch up, your defense is naturally going to be more laps. You're going to give up more goals, and the goal differential is just going to get wider. It's just, there's no way of getting around it. Like, like if you're playing a game like the Islanders, where they're always like one goal or 2 goals apart from the other team all the time. I mean, you never see a 3-goal lead for the Islanders or a 3-goal deficit for the Islanders. But your goal differential is not going to go crazy because the Islanders never in a spot where they have to. The Islanders really stay tight. Where the Islanders are losing it this year is late in games when they're not coming up big, when other teams are coming up with the big goals and they're not coming up with big goals.
So let's stop there. So when the Islanders don't score first, when the opponent scores first, at home they're 6-5-3. On the road they're 6-10-2. That's not good.
No.
And why do they not have comeback ability? Because they don't have enough scoring.
And we can sit there and say about the Islanders, they've got 67. They've got 79 points in 67 games played. The Maple Leafs have 79 points in 69 games played.
Right, so, but they have the advantage of third place.
Of course, they're in that division, but
right,
to put in perspective, like how bad Toronto is. We're talking about the Islanders being horrible, absolutely horrible. They've got
here's the number.
Have you been listening to me?
No, I know you've been saying this for a long time.
I'll give you the number. Here's the number, Eck.
Yeah.
When the Islanders are trailing, they're 5-19-2.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, that's the number.
That's the number because they can't.
Trailing after 2 periods. It's trailing after 2 periods, but it shows they have no comeback ability.
Yeah.
Let's just say this. I would love to be Matthew Barzal's agent this summer because
he's not getting $10 million now.
Well,
he's not
with that team and their lack of offense.
He's still only going to get 8.5. That's it.
Well, you know what? I would take a 2-year bridge then,
and that might happen. But I'm telling you, he's not getting more than that. He has underperformed what you would expect him to do, regardless of how the team is.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, tonight, okay.
And I don't want to put too much pressure on him. He's still a young player. But when you're trying to get that kind of money, you start talking like that.
Here's the crazy thing tonight. Tonight, the Panthers play the Blues, okay? And the Panthers and the Blues are going to win that game in all likelihood. The Blues are a much better team.
Don't say that. They lost in
right now. I mean, yeah, I shouldn't say.
So you're giving up on the Panthers finally?
No. I'm actually saying the opposite here because the idea here is the Panthers. Let's say the Panthers win that game tonight. Somehow they get 2 points out of this game tonight.
And they're behind Toronto by a point with the games even.
With games even behind Toronto with 1 point.
That's why that West Coast trip was so disastrous for Toronto. They played 3 of the worst records in the Western Conference. Not to say, the pressure was off of them. All of them had traded significant players, and they came out with 1 loser point. And I have to give credit to Carl Koliakova, who's a morning show co-host in Toronto. He talking about like hearing the excuses after the games, the player, some of the players, saying, well, we've got to play back. At a certain point, you got to tell them to shut up. Like, shut up and show me on the ice that all this, we've got to be better. Okay, you got to be better, then play better. Here's
what I don't understand about the Leafs, okay? They have that horrible game the night before the trade deadline, or 2 days before the trade deadline, and they don't do anything. Right, that's fine. But then they come out of the trade deadline and they beat Tampa, Florida, and Vancouver. They win 3 games in a row against 3 good teams. I mean, 3 potential playoff teams. And Florida and Vancouver may not be the playoffs. They beat Tampa in Tampa, for crying out loud.
Right,
They beat them like handily.
They're
can't lose that many games.
They're a roller coaster.
And then they lose 3 games in a row to the Sharks, Kings, and Ducks. I mean,
right. They're a complete and utter roller coaster.
What does that tell you? Like, what do we know historically about teams that do that? That teams that like play, like they win a bunch and they lose a bunch.
They're flawed.
They're flawed, but it's more than that. It tends to be historically something that connects to young teams. Okay, now then they're not. I'm not saying that the Maple Leafs are a young team, but that historically is what
the core is young, except for Tavares.
Yeah, young teams can look amazing or look terrible. And that's what you'll see, where the more veteran team, they sort of fall into what they are, and they're never going to be. But a young team can look unbelievable, and they can look like they're world beaters. And if they get hot at the right time, they can still do anything. That's why the Leafs are such an interesting team to me, because who knows? In the playoffs they could go in and fly in, or they could not make the playoffs. So at this point, they're really kind of hanging on to either spot at this point. And I don't know if they don't make the playoffs. I mean.
If they don't make the playoffs, then I think it'll just exacerbate.
It's a disaster if they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, if they don't make the playoffs.
And the only thing is that like
bad division.
Their first round pick is lottery protected or top 10 protected, so they might get a top 10 pick in the first round, but that doesn't help the near goal, which is for them to be a Stanley Cup contender. I actually think that Brendan Shanahan made a big mistake on this trip. He was out in Los Angeles and he was talking to the media, and he talked about Austin Matthews, and he said, Austin Matthews is a great enough talent to be a Rocket Richard Trophy winner and a Selke Trophy winner. Yeah. And I'm like, can you not put any more pressure on somebody who's making the second most amount in the NHL?
I agree with that. I actually think he still should have ripped the team. Honestly, I think he should have done that 2 weeks ago and ripped the team.
Yeah, but Russ, the thing is, everybody that he wants is in place now. He's got his general manager.
It doesn't matter. Who cares?
Let me finish. He's got his general manager. He's got his coach. And during his talk to the media, he sort of threw a veiled shot at Mike Babcock. So.
But that Babcock's gone, and the problem's still there. So now I've got to look squarely into the camera and say, it's up to the players now. That's what Shanahan's job is. No more buttering up. Well, buttering up doesn't do anything for them.
He did say that in a way, but it didn't come out
in plain terms.
Right. He didn't come out right that way and say it. It's like he didn't put any pressure on them, or did he put pressure on Matthews specifically by those lauded expectations, which he doesn't need. He's going to score 50 goals. Maybe someday he'll be good enough to win a Selke Trophy. Who knows? But don't put any more pressure on him.
It's not a great look.
Yeah, it's not. And
I do want to mention this for the Flyers, right?
Yeah, we'll talk Flyers. Yeah.
So their next 7 games will determine whether they win the division or not. And I don't think they're going to. I think the odds are stacked against them. Yeah. Here's who they have coming up. Bruins at home tomorrow. Yeah. Lightning at Lightning. Wild against the Flyers at home. The Oilers against the Flyers at home. The Blues against the Flyers at home. The Flyers against the Stars away. The Flyers against the Predators away. We'll see what they're made of after that trip, after those sequence of games.
Yeah,
it's easy to go on the roller coaster,
Well, it's crazy. I mean, look at those. I mean, that definitely is the case. Sorry, could you close the door over there? Thanks. Oh, I just have the vacuum running outside. All right. No, when you look at those series of games, you're absolutely right. They have won 9 in a row, which is which is pretty unbelievable.
If they win 16 in a row, they'll win the division.
Yeah, they will win the division. I don't think they're going to win. I think. I mean, my projections for the first time has them finishing ahead of the Penguins. Which is like not a big deal. I mean, they are 4 points ahead of the Penguins, but the Penguins have played pretty well. At times, and at times they've been absolutely horrible. I mean, they are 2-8-0 in the last 10. And to me, to sit there and I really hard to say that the Penguins are going to beat the Flyers in the playoff series right now. I mean. Like you guys, you both still believe that? I mean, that's
we were looking at 2 extremes here. We're looking at the best you'll ever see the Flyers look, and the worst now again that you're seeing the Penguins look. I told Mike this offline. Crosby, I think, put it in great perspective. He said, we did win a couple games, but now all of a sudden in these games, there's a couple of turning points that seem to be happening in every game, whether it's a cross, a post hit, a bad bounce, whatever. All those things seem to be going against us. We have to find a way to have it even out and have it come in our favor. And I think by the time they get to the playoffs, they will. Even if they lose out, right? Even if the Penguins were to lose out and get the last wild card spot, at the end of the day, the Flyers still have to face those players, the record no longer means anything, and they have a ton of playoff experience.
Oh, I think the Flyers Penguins series, the record never has meant anything. Like I think when they play each other in the playoffs, it's not going to matter. I mean, home ice will matter. Home ice does matter.
Did it matter in 2018?
No, it doesn't always matter, but I think it does matter for this particular Flyers team, which is way better at home.
That's fine.
And Carter Hart,
in the regular season, they're better at home. We don't know what they're like at home.
Again, I don't know if it'll matter, but it just you would think that it would have some meaning in that, but I don't.
It should. It should.
I don't know. I mean, the one thing I will say is, like finishing in first place in the Metro or the Atlantic are huge things, and I think that getting
Caps aren't giving it away.
Right. I mean. Although, you start to ask yourself, does it really matter? Because, okay, Pittsburgh is starting to look and play like they maybe are a wild card team, but they're better than that. But Toronto, is.
Well, this is the thing.
You're probably better off you're going to play, if you're probably better off finishing second in Atlanta, because you're probably going to end up playing a team who has more. If you finish first, like the Bruins could play a team with 81 points now versus.
Right. Well, right now the Bruins would play Carolina. And a bit if the season ended today. But this is the task in front of Toronto right now. They play 6 of the next 7 games at home. They have not been a good home team this year. I think their last regulation home victory was like in December or January.
That's awful. Wow.
Yeah, they've won a lot of overtime games, but they're not playing. And I may be wrong on that. I heard that, but I had to look over the schedule. But they have Tampa, Nashville at home this week, then at Boston. Last time they played Boston, they've gotten killed the last 2 times against the Bruins. Then New Jersey, Islanders, Columbus, Florida. So you've got 3 of those 4 teams that are in a playoff race. The 4th one, the Devils, have been playing really well with the pressure off of them. And then they end the season with 4 on the road and then 2 at home against Detroit and Montreal. This is not a cakewalk.
No,
there shouldn't be any overconfidence here about the Leafs making 3rd place. The Florida Panthers have left the door wide open because they've sucked the last 2 weeks. But if they all of a sudden get it on track and the Leafs continue to wallow.
I mean, there's a lot of games left. There are. That's the reality.
There's like 15 games left, or 12 to 15 games left, depending on who you are, right? So there are a ton of games left.
So it's a lot of games for everybody except like the Blackhawks and a few other teams like that.
Yeah.
You're finally going to admit. Hold on. You're finally admitting the Blackhawks are out of it.
Oh no. They are.
Of course not.
They've got games. They're not out of it.
No.
Well, here's.
I will say Anaheim is out. Anaheim and LA are all out of it.
You're the kind of guy that would be holding up that one chance at winning the golden ticket, and I would have 100 of them, and you would think you're winning the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
No, I am. I'm going to move. We're going to move on to Colorado in a second because I did promise you to do that. But I'm going to say this about this. No, like you don't remember back to when you were a fan. Like you have to remember back to when you were a fan and like realizing that, that you're not counting your team out of it until they're out of it, and that's like, and
it depends what kind of fan you are.
What?
Click your heels.
Well,
fans
if you're a Maple Leafs fan, you think your team's out of it when they're 3rd in the Atlantic. I get that.
Right.
No, realism. It's called realism.
You think they're not going to make the playoffs when they're 3rd in the Atlantic, but
I'm sorry. After the last.
No, I wouldn't. Listen, we can logically argue that for sure, and that's what just bothers me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here. You guys can please mention in the comments because I need somebody to back me up or just go against me and tell me I'm crazy. I don't need more people to tell me I'm crazy. I have plenty of that in my life. But if you can just tell me that somebody out there gets what I'm saying, because sportscasters like us it's too easy to sit there and say that a team is toasted, that a team is a joke, that a team's out of it. That's so obvious to me.
I said they were a joke. I just said they're out of it.
Let's just look at it. I look at it logically. I mean, Chicago is very close to being out of it.
They're out of it. You want to look at their schedule?
Very close to being out of it. But these teams are not out of it. Like Montreal, maybe more so. Montreal's 8 points back, okay, and Montreal's played 70 games. So let's put them out of it. All right, I'll give you.
I'm going to give you the next 6 games for the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Tell me how many points they're going to get.
All right.
They play the Sharks at home.
That's a win.
They play the Senators at home.
2 wins.
They go to Washington.
Loss.
They go to Minnesota.
They play Minnesota tough. They just beat them. I'm going to give
Minnesota goes to them.
I'll give them a point. Let's say they get 2 out of 4 points.
Then they go to the Sabres.
6, then they beat Buffalo. That's it. That's not bad.
Yeah, which isn't.
But that's only them doing that. That doesn't count what everybody else is doing.
Oh, I know. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know what the actual number is, but when you say the teams like they are, like, let's look at Arizona. Arizona is 2 points out, right? But they have 3 teams between them, right?
Right.
And I wonder how many points you can actually say in your head every team between equates to.
I think you need 8 just to get 2.
I think you said 2 points. You can add 2 points that are really back for every team that's ahead of them.
Yeah, I think you need 6 or 8. I do.
Yeah, because I think they need I think it's really an 8-point makeup, even though it's only 2, which is.
Look at all the games the Flyers are winning. They're still not even in first place.
Yeah, I know, and they're not, and
now,
they're tied with first
on the opposite end of the.
They're not tied. They're
regulation wins. They're behind.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, at the trade deadline, the Buffalo Sabres were 6 points out of a playoff spot. They've lost 6 games in a row, and now they are second last to Detroit.
Right. So
I guess it wasn't a good idea to sort of reshuffle the deck chairs.
Yeah, Wayne Simmons, by the way, the other night, he was invisible against the Flyers.
Yeah,
he didn't do anything.
I mean, the Sabres took. I mean, the shot that they took was Wayne Simmons. I mean, is that what they gave up for Wayne Simmons is not going to kill them at the end of the day.
No, but they had an opportunity to at least sell some of their UFAs and get something for them. The only thing, just like Esmir just said in the chat, Botterill might be done. The thing is, if he was told by ownership that you've got to at least come close to making the playoff, make March consequential for you to keep your job, then what he did was he brought in Dominic Cahoon for Sheary, who was going to walk away at the end of the year, and Evan Rodriguez, who had requested a trade, and brings in Wayne Simmons. That was not the right thing to do. This team was a load of crap since December, and they should have dumped. And
okay, I will tell you this.
You can definitely
based on the Cahoon move, which I thought was a good one, and he scored a goal against the Flyers. He is a good player.
Yes.
That's a future move. So that tells me that Botterill is going to have the summer to spend money, because otherwise he wouldn't have made that move. He would have made a bigger move with a bigger player, knowing that all the chips are in the table. I don't think he's had to push all the chips. That's just my feeling.
I want to go to Colorado, guys, because we don't talk about these teams in the West enough. And someone brought
let me just finish the thought.
Go ahead.
Out there. If that's the case, Russ, then Botterill should be fired, because he should have dumped. If he knew he was going to be back next year, and you've got guys like Gergensons and Larson, you gave away Bogosian for nothing. I mean, you should have.
He rolled the dice, Mike. That's what he did.
All right, let's talk Colorado.
Okay, and we'll.
Saying
that I don't know what you mean, Flyers fan, that we need a different Flyers correspondent, because
Russ is not a Flyers correspondent.
Russ isn't a Flyers correspondent. None of us are actually Flyers.
But I go to all their games. Wait, ask them what need am I not fulfilling? Blind loyalty? What is it?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean the reality is, I mean, we're all. Am I actually being said that I'm not being favorable to the Flyers? That would be astonishing. I'm like constantly being Flyers positive all the time.
I'm the Toronto columnist for the website, and there's nobody more critical of the Leafs than I am.
Right. Well, except for all the other Toronto media people. Yeah, they're Toronto media. They really. No, I'm saying, Mike. That I mean,
they have underachieved.
Yeah,
and
they deserve everything they're getting right now. I'm not defending. Listen. I mean, I've had moments when I've gone at you for the Leafs and saying you're being too hard on them. You're not being too hard on them right now. There's no two ways about it. They just lost 3 games to California, to 3 teams, basically, the 3 teams that just are not in the playoffs. So that's nuts. Colorado, 9-1-1 in their last 11, despite the fact of massive amounts of injuries. They are playing with a completely shuffled deck, and they continue to win in an essential division that is very, very tough.
Here's a question I have. They're 9-1-1 with Pavel Francouz as their goalie. Do they put Pavel Francouz as their goalie in the playoffs?
It's got
it. If he keeps winning, they probably will. Yeah,
I don't think there's any question he is, and because I also think that Grubauer, and this is why I wanted to make a trade, because the only experience that Grubauer has in the playoffs has been a bad one, and I don't think, and that's not necessarily his fault, but I don't think that if you're Colorado, you go in with a goalie that hasn't had. I'd rather go in with a guy who doesn't have any experience than what.
Yeah, look, they're gonna. If Francouz loses 3 games in the last 2 months of the season, he's going to be the goalie.
Yeah, no, I think he's already got it. I mean, personally, I can't see.
Look, Martin Gerber thought he had it too, and then he didn't. It happens too. I mean,
no, for sure. But what they do is just insane. I mean, there's the record. Granted, the record has just been incredible. I mean, and tonight they play the Kings, and then they play the Rangers and the Canucks and Vegas and San Jose and Nashville. Their schedule coming up, Montreal. It's not that hard. They've got. I mean, Nashville's on a little bit of a run here, but and Vegas is on a run. Vegas has played really well. I mean, Vegas and Philly are kind of the two stories of the two conferences right now. And but the interesting thing about Vegas to me, I mean, besides and I should put Colorado and St. Louis right there too. I mean, obviously they're both 9-1.
St. Louis could repeat. No one's going to be shocked.
Yeah, I mean the Blues in the Central. There's definitely you're starting to see that separation in the Western Conference, especially between the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like,
I mean,
St. Louis and Colorado are by far, then you have Vegas and Edmonton. The great news is the fun news for that story is that Edmonton's only 2 points behind Vegas. They play each other tonight. That's going to be a fun battle tonight. That's a good game tonight for sure. And and Vegas is coming off a back-to-back against Calgary, so Edmonton has a little bit of a bonus there from that situation. But
here's another misleading goal differential. Dallas is +5. Dallas is one of the best defensive teams in the league. Ben Bishop is one of the best goalies in the league, and
they can't score though.
Can't score. And this is the thing that's unbelievable. This is a team that 3 years ago was wide open with saying
the opposite. Yeah,
I know.
Now they're the complete and utter opposite. Again,
well, no, but some of it is because of Rick Bowness. He is a defensive coach.
Sure,
he's a defensive specialist. So now they have changed the way they play. They have.
No, he's a defensive specialist for sure. But the real story is Sagan has 50 points. He's their leading scorer, and they don't have anybody else with 40 points on their team. I mean, that's just astonishing. Like, Jamie Benn has 39 points and is their second leading scorer.
Yeah. I want to mention this, Eck, to any of the Flyers people that think I'm not doing my job as a reporter in general, because I'm not a Flyers reporter. I want to read you what the second power play unit is of the St. Louis Blues. Zach Sanford, Tyler Bozak, Robert Thomas, Vince Dunn, Colton Parayko. If you're going to tell me as the Flyers their second power play can match up to that, good luck.
Yeah, no, there's no question. But then
Bozak was in the first power play of one of the best power plays in the league in Toronto.
To counter argue that, we are now. I mean, if I'm a Flyers fan, I am like.
Oh, you should be happy. There's no doubt.
I'm thrilled to death that Russ is comparing my second power play unit to the second power play unit of the Stanley Cup champions. And that's not what I expected right now at this time of year.
And St. Louis's second power play will get even better when Tarasenko comes back and they move another guy down to the second power play.
Now, just to be fair, I'm going to tell you their three best defensemen. And they split them out the same way the Flyers spread out their three. But their three best defensemen, and again, they lost Bouwmeester. Let's mention that.
Yeah.
Peter Angelo, Colton Parayko, Vince Dunn.
Yeah.
That's better than the Flyers' best three defensemen.
And you're not even including Justin Falk.
Right.
No, I mean
right.
You're comparing the Flyers to the Stanley Cup champions.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to put it in perspective. I'm just trying to get people to understand perspective. And even if the Flyers beat St. Louis on a given game, it doesn't mean when the playoffs start that they can match up with that team. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think, they beat St. Louis in St. Louis recently, but that was again, and that was kind of the beginning of this run, towards the beginning of this run, I guess. But I don't know. I mean,
here's the Blues' third line. Ready? Yeah. Alex Steen, Robert Thomas, Tyler Bozak. That is better than most teams' second lines.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you're right. I mean, and to get.
We're not even talking about them regularly. We talk about the Avs and other teams more.
Yeah. No, we try. I mean, I try. I mean, they're the story. I mean, they've won 9 in a row. I mean, no one else in the league has won more than 3 in a row that I can look at right now. So I mean, that winning 9 in a row in March is a big deal. That's like the time of year you want to. Oh, actually, so I shouldn't say the Kings have won 5 in a row. Okay, so they're the second most.
Right. And that's what's killing a lot of these other teams is because the Kings got hot.
Yeah, no, the Kings are crazy hot.
Well, as opposed to being hot, we know that the Wild are hot, but Vancouver is really ice cold right now.
Yeah,
and you have to say that the loss of Markstrom to injury has really killed them. It's not all on Demko.
No, it's not, because nobody felt like this would be Demko's year anyhow.
But
Demko bad because people are like, "Oh, you're like
the problems."
I'm not trying to brag that I picked the Canucks to fall out of the or that the thing projected the Canucks to fall out of the playoffs. I'm just saying that the idea here is that they are still a young team.
Yes,
and they are on the right
I don't
track.
think any of us picked them for the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, they were in the playoffs, but at the deadline, a lot of people thought, that they were.
Yeah, and they lost Besser. The injury.
Yeah, Besser was a massive loss.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 losses that they really have affected it.
They covered up the Besser in the seriousness of Besser's injury until after they had acquired Toffoli because they wanted to keep the price down on Toffoli.
Right.
So. Yeah, I mean they're in trouble. I'm not saying that they can't make it. I mean, like I said, when you have 5 teams within 3 points of each other, the it's going to change every day.
I'm telling you though, still the best story in hockey are the Columbus Blue Jackets. Mike, pull up their roster. Let's read out the players.
I mean, talk about team playing without injuries and stuff like that. It's astonishing.
But let's just talk about their players. Who's actually playing for John Tortorella today?
Yeah.
There's some names that people have never heard of. I guarantee.
Yeah.
I did this last night in their 2-1 win over the Canucks. Andrew Peak. I don't even know the first name of this guy. Stensland.
Right.
I think it's Kevin, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think it is Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin Stensland. Hey, I got that one. Jakob Lilia. Let's see, Riley Nash, Stefan Matteau, former New Jersey Devil.
Cast off.
Yes. Vladislav Gavrikov, Emil Benstrom, Eric Robinson,
Princeton alum,
Marcus Ninavara, and Devin Shore. That's
30% of their team.
That's astonishing. And to tell you how hurt they are, I want to show you something else. Tell you how many injuries they face. Look at this. I want to show you guys very carefully and pay attention because this is pretty fascinating. I just noticed this now. So I'm going to go to their website here, okay? And how hurt they are is that if I go to their player stats presented by Blue Technologies, it worked. A second ago, it was not working. I got a 404 page. I was thought even it sucks. Even their player stats were injured until just now. It ended up working for me, but I'm telling you, I got something that didn't work at all. That's really funny that it works now, but that tells you how messed up they are there. But it's working again. But look, I mean, when you look at they don't have a 50-point player. Like they have Dubois at 49, and I mean, they just have. It's amazing that this team has.
This is the coaching job of the last 5 years for anybody.
This team has 6 players with 30 points or more.
It's crazy.
30 points or more. Think about that. Like
I'm waiting for them to call up Stu Bickle.
I know. I mean, John Tortorella has done an amazing job. Jarmo Kekalainen may be in line now for GM of the year because if we'd have really covered it the day they picked up Stefan Matteau and threw him in the lineup, like 2 days later, he had a goal. Now, I remember when he was a highly touted prospect, but he's certainly had a long track to get back to the NHL. They've got a bunch of those guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they really do.
And you have to give the GM credit for that.
No, you definitely do. And I think that they're, I've always been a big fan of their front office, with both him and with Kukalainen and Bill Zito. The two of them, I think, are masterful at getting.
None of us thought they'd make the playoffs. We said after Panarin lost, at the loss of Panarin, the loss of Dzingel, the loss of the guys who left, we were like, they're not making the playoffs. And they still may not. But the fact that they've hung into it this long with all these injuries is unbelievable.
I mean, I think Sakic as well. I think the two of them are.
Sakic's up there.
I mean, I think the two of those guys, I think Sakic and Kukalainen are both definitely.
He got Nemestikov, and Nemestikov's worked out well for him.
By the way, I did pick him to make a wild card spot, but just saying, whatever.
Pick who?
Pick the Columbus Blue Jackets. They were one of my wild card teams.
Well, that's
for the season.
It's still that may be a great pick.
Yeah, thanks. It might be. And talking of great picks, the Edmonton Oilers are.
Jesus Christ.
No, I can't wait for tonight's game. I mean, they continue to find ways to win. And
did I have myself muted?
What I really like about the Oilers is that this is a Tippett team, and they are showing that they're a Tippett team, that they can play these 1-0, 2-1 games and win them. And Kukalainen the other night had like a remarkable game. Like he made 49 saves. I forget which team it was when they won 2-1. I can't remember exactly what game it was. I'll find out for a second. But I was watching the game, and Kukalainen, I think you guys have been giving these guys still a raw deal on these goalies.
Wait,
you're talking about
Koskinen?
Come on, I said Kukalainen. Yeah, sorry, Koskinen.
You confused the panel here.
Totally totally losing my mind.
Well, he sucks too. No, sorry.
Koskinen was unbelievable the other night. I am really sorry that I said that. I am like I'm going on no sleep here. I got a sick kid. I'm doing my best.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, Edmonton has performed really well. But again, I also think the fact that they finally gave Kaylor Yamamoto a chance is a big deal because he wasn't even a factor when Mike and I were ripping on him.
I know.
He wasn't even up there.
No, I totally agree. It's a really big deal, and they really should have given him more of a, should have been there all along. Every time he played, he scored.
I'm going to pull up his numbers. His numbers are 24 points in 25 games with 11 goals. That's the Yamamoto that Mike and I had seen pre-NHL. Whereas James Neal, James Neal's turned back into James Neal.
Yeah.
But it hasn't hurt him.
That's true. He really has been very unremarkable, and yet they're still winning. I mean, and granted, they're in a division that's not the greatest division for sure.
No, but it doesn't matter. They're winning games.
Yeah, they're finding a way to win.
If they do make the playoffs, which I'm still not going to admit, I pray it'll be against Calgary. I pray that will be an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean,
we all want to see
that game the other day. They played on Wednesday, I think it was. Those two teams, and the Flames won in overtime 3-2. But it was a hell of a game. It was really like an absolute battle and a half.
So here's the $1 million question. Let's say that matchup happens in the first round and Calgary were to beat Edmonton. Do the Edmonton fans think they had a good season? I don't know if they would say that if they lost to Calgary in the first round.
They are, well, if they lost to Calgary, no. If they beat Calgary and they lose in the second round,
they would.
They said that a few years ago when they got to the second round and lost to Anaheim. Oh, we had a good season because they hadn't made the playoffs in a generation.
Yeah.
But,
they're going to.
It's not going to be their Stanley Cup. It's like
they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, they're a year ahead of Vancouver. In the whole project progression thing. I think
that's fair.
Because I put out there, and we can end on this. Is I put out there today that the about what was the next Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup, and I like to do this every year this time of year because I've done it over and over again. And it's
and I applied it. I applied it logically in terms of.
Yeah. Well, if you've done it every year, you've been wrong every year since 1993.
No, I asked people.
The next one.
I know.
I asked people who they think the next team to win, the next Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup, and I put it out there on Twitter.
Yes.
And to see, and basically it was overwhelmingly. It's because Twitter, you're only allowed to do 4 choices at once, so it's a little bit hard. I did the Eastern Conference, and then I did the Western Conference. So I did the Eastern Conference. I did the Maple Leafs won out by a lot, and which they should over Montreal and Ottawa. And then in the Western Conference, Edmonton won out by quite a bit, which is a little bit. I don't know if they should have won out by quite a bit, but they definitely won out.
Let me take it east to west first. I think Montreal is the lowest of the Eastern teams because.
Lower than Ottawa. Come on.
No. Because Russ, they're going backwards.
But they still have Carey Price and Shea Weber. Stop.
Right, but no, I'm sorry. I think
crazy.
Price is getting older and not as good. And I love the quality of the Ottawa prospects, and they're going to have 2 in the top 5 this year. So.
But that still puts them pretty far away. I mean, you could say that they're going to be good.
But I think Montreal
might be better than Montreal.
You got a 33-year-old Shea Weber and a 31 or 32-year-old Carey Price.
Yeah, but the Canadians are also still like they're out of the playoffs. They're basically out of the playoffs like now, like we've talked about. But
what I'm saying actually,
but they've stuck in there. They've hung in there.
Being mediocre, which is what they are, does not mean that you're going to stay at that level. I think they're going to get worse, and I think Ottawa's going to get better. Toronto is clearly of the 3 Eastern teams, the best of the 3. But they have.
Let me ask. I want to ask 2004 Mike Ogello. What was he saying about Ed Belfour, who was 38 years old and had a great year? What did he say about him?
Well, he had a great year, and they lost in the second round.
But what did you say about him? His age?
At that point, he was still playing great.
Well, Carey Price hasn't dropped off either.
The team in front of him is not good.
But that doesn't affect how he is going to be season to season, that affects how the team is in front of him season to season.
All right,
Yeah, here's the tough thing about
His skills haven't fallen off.
The tough thing about this question is this, okay? Like it's a matter of windows. Like, like this question really comes down to matter of windows. Like,
and I think Montreal's window is closing. That's what I
right.
say.
You think their window is closing? Ottawa's window is opening, and it's not. I mean, it's not even open yet.
I think Ottawa's window right now is nailed shut. It's not anything.
It's more going in the positive direction because
if you want to say it's open like a crack, like it's a 49-degree day.
The best thing about being the worst team is you know where your bottom is. Like that's I think that's where the Senators are right now. Like they can't bottom out worse than this. They do have exciting players. They are a fun team to watch. They do have great draft picks. You can argue
they could be worse than this next year if they don't have a goalie.
Right. That's true. And
if Anderson leaves, they may not have a good goalie yet.
Yeah, and I mean Montreal's also faced a lot of injuries this year too, and Montreal was off to a pretty good start. I mean, they also have a lot of good young players. They have a lot of fast young players.
Montreal has at least Nick Suzuki's having a very good year that nobody talks about, and I think Paling, when he gets over these little injury bugs, will be a terrific player. They have some players. They just honestly, if they spent a little money, it wouldn't hurt them.
Well, the problem is not spending money. The problem is getting somebody to take their money.
Well, that's the whole other thing. But they can still spend more money. They're not,
and that's part of my thing. When you offer somebody $1 million more a year, like they did Jake Gardner, and I know the reason why he didn't do it, but when they offer him $1 million more a year, and he decides to take the Carolina deal for less money instead, that's a problem. That is a problem.
No. Here's the problem. In what era is it good that the Montreal Canadiens have $4.3 million in cap space?
Yeah, that is a big issue.
I mean, this is the Montreal Canadiens. I'm not saying
this. A lot of this has to do with the Montreal Canadiens will never, ever, 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 ever admit to doing a rebuild. Okay, that's not going to happen.
Right, that's stupid.
They never have. They never will. They never can. That's just their fan base doesn't. That I guess I don't think there's a translated word for rebuild in French. I think that's probably what it is. There's just no.
But the thing is they really did a rebuild a couple years ago when they drafted Kotkaniemi. He was the 3rd overall pick. They didn't
third overall pick, but that still was. They still weren't trading off players. I mean,
who is the 3rd highest paid player on the Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah. What?
Who is the 3rd? It's a tie for the 3rd.
Okay, go ahead.
Thomas Tatar and Jonathan Drouin, maybe Jeff Petrie.
It's Petrie and Drouin at $5.5 million.
Right. Yeah,
they are the next highest paid guys after Weber and Price, and unfortunately, it shows.
Yeah. That I mean, they have to, and I mean they have issues getting people there because of the taxes. They have a tough time signing free agents. There's no question about that. But they do have some good young players. But let's move past that because let's move.
What about the West?
Well, the West people went Edmonton overwhelmingly, and then so what I did is at the end I went to put the top 4 of each situation. So I asked everybody out there: Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. Those were the 4 teams that were the most likely to get there in their mind, which makes sense. Winnipeg was was a little bit below there, but they came back. I've had almost 2,000 votes now. Edmonton leads with 46%, Toronto at 24%, Calgary, Vancouver at 19%, Calgary at 10%. So that's where they see this right now.
I think that's definitely wrong.
I think it's wrong in this for this reason, Ek. Koskinen is not a young goalie. If Edmonton doesn't win the Stanley Cup in a couple of years, you're looking at a 34, 35-year-old goalie who's already not like a top echelon goalie.
And they don't have a Carter Hart or anybody like that in like waiting in the wings. They don't have a young goaltender,
right?
To come up in the next couple of years. I mean, even Buffalo has Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's a good goalie.
Their window is the next couple of years, Ek. It's not.
I know.
If Edmonton's smart, and I'm not saying that this guy will be a starter in a year or two, they should trade up in the first round and get the Russian goaltender who's probably going to be and develop him and have him so that when Koskinen fails in a couple of years, they'll have a goaltender.
But maybe they could get a Matt Murray. Maybe they can make it. Maybe they can make a deal at some point here to get somebody like that. It's not impossible. There are goalies available usually. I mean, like Robin Leonard's available right now. That would have been a good pickup for them.
It would have been
at the right time, like say like 2 years from now, a guy like Robert.
I don't know if Leonard will ever go back to a Canadian market.
No, but not Leonard, but a player like that in 2 years from now could be available. Their goalies are available. Like you can't. I'm not. I mean, I agree that they don't have what you would consider as your like prototypical Stanley Cup winning goalie in their system, or even these two definitely are not. But I think they're better than people give credit for. And with Tippett's system, you definitely have something there.
I mean, I'll tell you that Olivier Rodriguez is their best goalie. He's 19, so you're looking at 3-4 years away. They have a KHL goalie who barely plays, so they would have to go out and get a goalie.
Yeah. And I know Matt Murray's not playing well, guys, right now. Obviously, that's the case. But
he was and he wasn't. Like he's not having a great year, but he also had problems in his personal life. And
yeah, I'm willing to give him a chance.
I'm willing to give him a pass because of that. Even Jerry had some bad games recently.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like
he's gonna too.
Yeah, and I think that Matt Murray has shown that he can be a big game goalie in the playoffs.
Yeah. Thanks, Spartacus. David Ayers is available. That we know. E5.
I didn't mention him this show.
E5, Spartacus.
There we go. All right, let's get to Tankathon. Then we got to get out of here. So this is the.
If the Devils win again, we got to go to a different website.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Right. Okay. Is this?
Come on.
Is that right? What the heck's going on with this? There. No, that's showing my whole screen. All right, 1 second. Let's get rid of that and go here because I'm thinking the wrong thing. Sorry. Stop sharing that. Cancel. All right, I'm gonna get it. Oh, there we go. That's better, Mike. I like that. Yeah.
No, the other one was better. What is wrong with you, Mike?
All right, here we go. Ready? We are simulating now. Go. It is the Chicago Blackhawks.
Wow. If you put Lafreniere with Patrick Kane,
yeah.
Holy moly.
I know. They're instantly competitive again. And if they can move, well,
they still wouldn't have a defense, but it would be better.
Yeah. That is if they don't move Kane together with
They're not moving Kane.
Well,
he's not getting traded.
I don't think so. But if you're willing to take Duncan Keith, apparently it's a discussion.
I think everything's a discussion because at some point they do have to dig out of that, but I don't think that's the way.
This is not a good one. This is not a good thing for Ottawa. The way this came out now, I mean, they fall to 4th and 5th. I mean, it's not the greatest situation for Ottawa, but
they're going to pay Seattle to take Duncan Keith. That's what they're going to do.
I think something like that could very well happen. Yeah. Yep. So Detroit rose up to number. No, they dropped number. I'm sorry.
If Seabrook comes back off of LTIR, then he's the one they're going to have to pay to get rid of.
Yeah.
Right. Then as soon as Keith gets picked up by Seattle, he retires and screws the Blackhawks with the cap recapture.
Right, but remember, Marian Hossa will play for the Blackhawks again. You watch.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah,
he's going to.
You're probably right. That'd be something.
People mark this. Mark it. I've said it at least 3 times, just so you know.
All right, a lot of big games tonight, guys. And then I like when there's more than one game on a Monday night. There's like 5 tonight, I think. So have how many are there? 4?
4 at least.
Yeah, there's at least 4.
5. Yeah, you got it right. 5.
5. Yep. I mean, and then tomorrow night, great games too. Tomorrow night, you have the
Flyers, Boston.
Yeah, tomorrow night's Flyers in Boston. So you have that'll be a real good test.
Should we just mention the brawl between the Bruins and Tampa Bay, and the fact that Jack Edwards made himself look like a complete ass with the comments he made about Zdeno Chara basically burying Patrick Maroon, and then Maroon body slammed him, and he didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, well,
I love Jack. I love
I think Jack is a good guy. I sit down with him. He's a terrific guy to talk to. But when he gets behind the mic, it's a different Jack.
Yeah, I was waiting for the Revolutionary War comments of the War 1812 or James Madison or something like it
was the anniversary of the Boston Massacre like a few days before that.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the big games tonight are definitely Vegas and Edmonton. That's gonna be fun, and then also Arizona and Winnipeg play tonight. So that's like a serious battle.
That honestly, that is one that Arizona needs to win.
They have to win that game. I agree with you.
The former Jets.
Yeah, it's the Jets.
That's the matchup. It is the Jets against the former Jets.
The former Jets against the Jets, yeah, as opposed to the West Side Story Jets versus Shark matchup, which is always my favorite.
Right.
This is the Panthers and the Jets a Jet forever, right?
I rooted for the Sharks that time. I say I'm not always a Jets fan.
Panthers Blues, remember, who knows? That's
sorry, I was a fan of Natalie Wood in that movie.
Panthers win that game tonight, then I think they're right back in it. I already think they're in it, as you know. All right. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey, kids.